As the country gets ready for President-elect Trump to take office, companies across the U.S. now hiring firms to try to help them prepare for the administration's tariff agenda. Joining us right now is Natasha Sarin, former Treasury Department official under President Biden and a professor at Yale Law School and the Yale School of Management. Oren Cass is also here, Executive Director of American Compass. Good morning to you both. Wanted to understand both what you think companies should be doing, can be doing to get ahead of this, to the extent there is something to get ahead of, Natasha.
Well, you kind of understand where the CEO agita is coming from on the tariff agenda, because it feels like there are like two competing strands of the Trump economic agenda. On the one hand, there's this view, I think this is disproven by empirical evidence, but there's this view that if you do a bunch of tax cuts, those are going to be pro-growth. So extend the Trump tax cuts, that's $5 trillion, cut the corporate tax rate, you're going to stimulate growth, you're going to get investment. On the other hand, there is sort of this singular focus on tariffs as a tool and eliminating the trade deficit. And those are in some conflict, because if you do get your growth and you get your investment, what's going to happen is demand is going to go up and imports are going to go up. Foreign capital investment in the U.S. is going to go up. The trade deficit is going to go up. And so I think what business leaders are kind of grappling with is, like, is the Trump administration going to focus on trying to grow the economy or eliminating the trade deficit, this broad-based program of tariffs that's ultimately going to shrink the economy? And it's kind of angel on one side of your shoulder, devil on the other. I think they're hoping that he goes for the angel and the pro-growth agenda. And I think that's, frankly, what we all should be hoping for as well.
Oren, angel or devil, and I'm going to throw in a sort of a mix to the question, which is, how much negotiating leverage do you really have if everybody knows it's a negotiation?
Well, I don't think it's a negotiation in this case. First of all, I think Trump on the tariffs, much higher tariffs with China in particular, and then also the global tariff, has been completely consistent on this for a couple of years now. And I guess I don't understand the devil and the angel thing. The reality is that what Natasha was just describing, if you just do tax cuts, if you pursue a model of, quote, growth that is driven by higher imports and a larger trade deficit, that is good for corporate profits. I don't doubt that. But it's not actually good for the fundamental economic growth we need in this country. This is the story that economists have been telling going all the way back to when we welcomed China into the WTO almost 25 years ago. And the reality is it did not work. We did not get higher investment. We got lower investment. We did not get higher growth. We got lower growth. And so it seems to me these are almost entirely complementary policies. If you want the lower taxes to induce investment, you need to pair those with the tariffs that create an incentive for the investment to actually happen in this country. And by the way, you also need the tariffs if you're going to pay for any of those tax cuts.
Well, if you pursue the tax cuts the way you've described them, then there's the cost question, which is what is it going to do to costs and therefore the inflation story? Well,
I think we have empirical evidence if we go back to the last round of tariffs that Trump imposed in 2018, which, of course, the Biden administration maintained and even extended, which is that the impact on costs was minimal. I think, if you think about the share of products that are imported, if you think about the size of the tariff people are talking about imposing, yes, you would expect some effect on the price level, but go back and play all your morning shows from 2018 and 2019 and try to find the one where everybody was worried about inflation surging out of control. It didn't happen. The inflation phenomenon is a consequence of the catastrophically bad agenda that the Biden administration pursued that obviously went in a totally different direction. But I think if you actually have the kinds of proposals that Trump is talking about, what you'll see is temporary, frankly, in a lot of cases, isolated effects on some price levels. But you'll also see that investment in expanding capacity and driving down costs in this country, which is, again, what we're actually looking for. If we actually want healthy growth, the question is, how do we get investment and competitive, efficient production happening in the United States, not how do we drive up corporate profits with higher, cheaper imports?
With
Oren,
all due respect, Oren.
hold on a second. I just want to, Oren, in the past, our main beef with each other has been higher corporate taxes or lower corporate taxes. Could we keep corporate taxes where they are if the tariffs that you're talking about were significant enough to allow it to stay at 21? Are you dead? I'm trying to reach a negotiating position between the two of it. Are you dead set on 25 or higher for corporate taxes? Could you leave it at 21 if you got the tariffs you want?
You certainly could. And I think, I appreciate you raising that, Joe. I'm not dead set on raising any particular tax rate. I would love to see tax rates be low wherever they can be. What I am dead set on is being fiscally responsible. And I think, unfortunately, for a long time, the Republican Party took this attitude that, tax cuts would, quote, pay for themselves. And they did not. Instead, we created ever larger deficits, which impose a real drag on the economy. I think a lot of the best economic research shows that all of the theories of supply-side tax cuts and spurring investment pretty much go out the window if you do it all with deficits. And so what I would love to see is a fiscally responsible plan that keeps rates as low as possible, but pays for anything that we do. And it's really encouraging to see up and down from all of the House leadership to, Treasury nominee Scott Bessent, all emphasizing that the things that we do on taxes have to be paid for. Tariffs can help do that. And that is moving us toward an actual productive economic policy that's going to get the country back on track.
Hey, Natasha, I know you wanted to jump in and I think wanted to comment on both the tax and tariff piece, but I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, so, Oren, I think there actually is like a space for us to have a conversation about particular tariffs in particular contexts and their value. But this idea that 20% across the board tariffs are not going to be extremely inflationary is just nonsensical. And you don't have to believe me. Many of those CEOs who are in that Wall Street Journal story, or it's the holiday season, a good time to talk about toy companies, what they're saying is if you look at the price of toys today, majority of them are imported from China. In a world in which a Tonka truck today costs $30, next year you should expect for it to cost $45. And it's kind of crazy that in an election that you can think of as realistically like an inflation referendum in meaningful ways, you are thinking about a set of policies that is going to amount to a tax increase on American households of somewhere between $2,000 and $7,000 on average as a result of these price increases. And the idea that somehow doing this is going to be good for the economy because you're going to stimulate manufacturing employment or American production is just, I know that's a thing that you've said, Oren, it's just not true, and it's not true empirically. So we did a bunch of these tariffs in the first Trump administration, and we now can look at the data. And what the data says is, sure, protectionism might be good for domestic production, but you have these countervailing forces. The countervailing forces are the fact that you're raising the price of inputs because a bunch of car parts, even for cars manufactured in the U.S., are coming from other countries, and you're getting a ton of retaliatory tariffs from those other countries.